Dr. Julie, welcome to Women Finding Clarity.
Thank you so much, Pascal. Thanks for having me today.
I'm so excited to have you here. I was honored to be a guest on your podcast. And so I'm so happy that we can make this reciprocal. I think that everything, who you are, what you stand for, your knowledge base, you're just so wise, you're so loving, you're so kind. You're just the perfect guest for my listeners.
Thank you so much. That was so sweet, Pascal.
But you know that I really mean it, right? I'm not just feathering the nest here. You
I
know.
do, because you're just that person. I feel like you always see the best in everyone and encourage it to come out in me for sure. So thank you for being you.
Absolutely. So I want to jump right in. You are, you know, I read your bio, I introduced you. You're just so impressive. And I really want to dig into leaders loving life because I feel like we don't have enough of that. We don't have enough leaders who are loving life. So let's talk about quickly for a moment, even though it's not quickly, how you came to this place.
Oh my gosh, how I came to this place. Let me just say a little bit about Leaders Loving Life, and then I'll tell you how I came to this place. The vision behind that is really to assist high achievers and entrepreneurs to be fully empowered with concrete tools, wisdom, and knowledge to become the foremost expert in how they leverage breakthroughs at any point when they're feeling stuck, spinning their wheels, maybe feeling that their insides and what they're experiencing doesn't match what the world sees on the outside. That's something I can very much relate to as a serial entrepreneur myself. And that came honestly from my origin story. I was relinquished by my family at birth, born to a teenage mom, and spent the first 3 months of my life in an orphanage, and then was adopted by a beautiful, loving family. But what I didn't realize until my early 20s, because it was super deep down in really a more unconscious place, is that I was using perfectionism and performative types of high anxiety behavior to soothe this, again, very unconscious part of myself that felt like I could be given up, like that felt kind of life or death, like my gold star, straight A performance was required in order not to be cast away. Now, my lovely, beautiful adoptive parents would die to hear that because they love me so much. It wasn't about what was going on logically, it's the way my system, my human system, had adapted to the experience of being one of 25 babies in an orphanage, probably full of like beautiful workers, but maybe a ratio of like 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. And learning that, you know, I wasn't always able to be tended to in that kind of ideal one on one way that I ended up studying extensively when I look at both prenatal and infant psychology and what that leads to. So, it's really been my life's work to help people uncover and decipher really life-changing tools that can help when they've gotten to the end of all the things they've been told that are going to help them. Therapy, coaching, whatever. And they're like, ugh, I must just be broken. And I'm going to tell every single person who's listening right now that is not true. That is not true. Our bodies are beautiful and brilliant, and our brain and spinal cord and our whole nervous system are built for our survival. And so if there's something that's going on that's leading to outcomes that you don't really want, it is not because you're broken. It's because there's an outdated code that's no longer adaptive for the present day, 2025. And that may sound like a bunch of gobbledygook right now, but I'm hoping that I have the opportunity to explain that in this podcast because it has been transformative in my life and also transformative for like hundreds, if not thousands of clients that I've worked with for these past 30 plus years. But long answer to your quick question.
It's a beautiful answer and it's real and it's raw and it's not picture perfect.
Yeah.
right? Your path to this place where we are today hasn't been a straight line. It hasn't been
Oh,
all sunshine and rainbows. I think it's easy to look at someone who's successful and think they're in the elite category. Everything works out for them. And everything hasn't worked out for you since the day you
right.
were born.
That's
And
right.
look at where you are now.
Yeah, I am really enjoying my life. It feels super meaningful. I love what I have to give. But it wasn't always that way because what this pressure cooker of a childhood, I was about to say was self imposed, which it was all happening inside my body. If you looked on the outside, it would look picture perfect. I never acted out. I was always kind of the star student, the star family member, super helpful. But what was going on inside was high anxiety, and it led me to become an engineer. I got a systems engineering degree. No small feat. Back in the late 80s, early 90s when I was in school, I was literally always in the minority in my classes. This was not a woman's world. And it was my teachers and parents that said, you should be an engineer. And I was like, so anxious to do the right thing and make sure everything looked good outside and everyone was happy with me. I was like, okay. I didn't even know what engineering was, Pascal. And I was riddled with anxiety. I played lacrosse in college, so I'm taking my engineering classes. I'm doing all the things, and I'm literally dying inside because my classes are not that exciting for me, but it was super performative. I couldn't fail, I had to perform. And I know a lot of my fellow kind of high achievers and entrepreneurs feel the same way.
Absolutely.
There's a study that was published in the Wall Street Journal that correlated a history of adversity, of some type of adversity, at 75%. 75% of entrepreneurs and high achievers have a history of adversity. And it makes sense, right? Because we learn these amazing skills, higher risk tolerance, tenacity, kind of hard work, and it leads to great outcomes. But oftentimes our insides haven't caught up with it. And that was certainly my story.
Absolutely. So you had this whole experience. You've dedicated your life to understanding it, to having breakthroughs for transformation. What do you think is the key to making lasting and meaningful changes in our lives?
That's a great question, Pascal.
It's a big question.
I actually have I love uh, uh, I don't know. I love creating worksheets and ways to simplify really complex topics so that they're user friendly so people can implement them in their lives. And I actually have this triangle that explains the levels of action that one can take to have real significant changes in your life. And I encourage people start at the bottom because the bottom ones are the cheapest. They're the least expensive in terms of money and time, right? If you can make a change with one of these, great. And if you can't, move up a level, move up a level. And the first level is really simply if a logical change can stick, do that. If you can read a self help book and you're like, oh my gosh, here's new information I never knew before. I'm going to absorb this and it inspired me enough to make this change and it lasts. Great, right? Our systems are complex. It's not a one size fits all. If that doesn't work, let's look at the next level, which is about conditioning. It takes roughly 21 days to change a pattern or change a behavior. Try to implement more of a conditioning strategy, maybe even with a group that helps keep you on your path, accountability, that type of thing. If that works and your health habits get better, or your stress levels go down, or you stop having negative self talk or beating yourself up, great, right? If that doesn't work, let's go to the next level where you're going to look to see if there are things that are accessible through coaching or therapy that you can move and change. There are an awful lot of exercises designed to illuminate blind spots that simply just require the vision of the other, the things you can't see, but others can, reflective exercises, those types of things. If that works, great. That costs more money, it takes more time, but if that gets you relief, amazing. Now, what I specialize in is the very top of the triangle, which is when we have things in the back of our psyche that are unseen to us and unseen to other people, yet they're there and they can really be the cause of really, really stuck places. I've tried all the things. This is where my heart opens up because I can relate to this. I felt this way, especially towards the end of my teenage years and in engineering school, where I felt so broken. I was doing every single thing that the world told me would give me results, and I wasn't getting results. It was everything on that pyramid up to this point. Where I started getting results was when I was going way deeper and I was in my own therapy, specifically finding clinicians that had the tools to work in my unconscious. It was tools like brain based therapies, EMDR, brain spotting, neurofeedback, body based therapies like somatic experiencing, sensory motor psychotherapy, expressive therapies. It was things that didn't use words, and that's kind of a key to getting to this deeper unconscious part of our mapping. And that's my jam. And I don't need to talk a lot about it because I know when I talk about it, people glaze over. But I can talk about it in excruciating detail. But it was my get out of jail free card. And I have seen miraculous things happen when people invest their time, money, and energy into those types of tools when they have something like that. Because you know what happens when people don't realize it's out there? They commit suicide. They become depressed and they fall off the cliff of despair and feel really hopeless and they feel defective. And I am supersonically on a crusade to fight against that. I could keep talking. Sorry. You can interrupt my monologue in 1 second because what I've seen in my friends and colleagues who are these high achievers is because they themselves have bought into this idea that they should be fine because their outsides look that way. That's when it feels like the only option is to just not be on the planet because the world is minimizing what's going on. Oh, but you've got this company. Oh, you have this beautiful family. All these logical things that do not change what's going on the inside. So that's really a fuel around my fire for the Leaders Loving Life initiative.
You, I love how you were like, you can interrupt my monologue in a second.
I do that a lot. I got a lot to say.
You make me so happy. But everything you say, I feel like is a mic drop. You simplified the path of how to work through and find what's going to help each person have their own breakthrough, right? Because when we're talking about um, breakthroughs and transformation and healing and all of that, if it's too hard, you're not going to do it. First of all, you can't
Mm,
even, your brain is just like, nope, too much, shut down. Let's go
totally.
someplace else. This isn't for me. But starting simply, starting with what's free, starting with a book, start right. And does that resonate with you? And then move to the next level. And so I reside in the level below you where I am the coach, right? Like, come and talk to me. Let's stop looking out into the expectations that are in the world and
Yeah.
let's turn our gaze inward and let's see what's going on in there. And
Yeah.
then if I'm not able to help you and or if we've reached capacity of what I'm able to help you with, and now it's out of my scope, you're the next level, you're the top level up, right? And then that is where I would refer someone to you and say, Dr. Julie, like this is
Mhm.
how far we've gotten. I'm referring this person to you. And I think that's a really important thing that you put out there is make sure you've done all the steps first
Yeah.
because you don't want to jump in the deep end if you're not ready.
Yeah. Well, and I would also say there is a very quick way to find out whether that's where the fruit's going to be for you.
Let's hear it.
So here's the simple 3-step question you can ask yourself. First of all, if you're feeling stuck and or there's something that you want to do, know how to do, and have the ability to do, if all three of those factors are present and you're not doing it, you know, and trust me, our system employs all kinds of ways to avoid, to hesitate, to step away. Like you're doom scrolling instead, you're shopping instead, you're eating instead. If that's all happening, but you want it, you really authentically want it. Not someone else told you you want it. You want it. You know how to do it, like i.e. you've read the self-help books, or you have a mentor or a coach, or you like know, or you have the ability, and that you can do it, right? Like I would like to be a professional singer. Whether I have the ability to or not, I don't know. I never had private coaching, but I don't really know how to do it, so I wouldn't go straight to, oh, I got to work something in my deep unconscious and my inner mapping. So that's the test. Like if you clearly have all these things and you can logically see that, but you're not doing it, run straight to the top of the pyramid, because actually the other things aren't going to work and you're going to feel defeated, because that tells you that it's in your unconscious. And unless there's specific tools being used to get there, you're going to maybe invest in some things that make you feel bad. And that's never a good thing. But that is the key to knowing, oh, that's where the gold is for me, for me.
That is super helpful. Thank you for, pointing out those three questions because I've never heard it that way before. And it makes it very clear, like exactly where, okay, these two things are true. I don't know how to do it. So let me find that out. Or, oh, yes, I know all three. Here I go, right to the top.
Yeah,
This
totally.
this is why I love you so much.
I like diagramming things. I mean, I do think I spent a lot of time and energy in my engineering degree, but it did nurture some qualities in me um, that have proven to be useful over time, even though I'm in a totally different field now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just as recent as a season ago, for one season, this podcast turned into being solely focused to entrepreneurs and how to build your business and all these different things. And now it's not that, right? Because we go through the experiences that we go through, and then we're able to apply those skills in our next experiences. And you did that. And the way that you create visuals is exactly how I learn. That's what I need to learn. And
Ah,
so
cool.
I appreciate that you do that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a big part of this program that I've developed called the Breakthrough Academy. And that is that empowerment based learning, right? So that it is weekly worksheets that come out and digital content that takes less than 10 minutes, but truly walks people through first understanding how our brain works, because that's part of my expertise. And then becoming your own coach, which I have a smaller program called Becoming Your Own Coach, a transformational program, but it's about empowering so that you can prosper in all these areas of life that really matter: health, wealth, time, relationships, and ultimately the legacy that you want to live into, right? And these steps are designed that when you go through the experience, you actually walk away at the end of the program fully empowered on how your human system works, not because you have a PhD, but because you actually have the actionable tools that are part of this bigger portal that you get to apply for yourself, because each person's a snowflake. We're not one size fits all. Some exercises that might be breakthrough worthy for someone aren't for someone else, depending on how your system is stacked. A quote that I like to share in my talks is from Stephen Smith, a Stanford neurologist. And he says, we have more synapses in our human system than there are stars in 1,500 Milky Way galaxies.
Okay. Say that again for the people in the back.
We are supercomputers. We are amazing and sophisticated. We're still more sophisticated than the most complicated AI that we have right now. A quote from Stephen Smith, Stanford neurologist: we have more synapses in one human system than there are stars in 1,500 Milky Way galaxies. It's amazing. Our body is like this sophisticated machine that always wants what's best for us, no matter what. No matter what. Even if you're engaging in things that people call self-destructive behaviors or things that feel shameful or have done or experienced things that are really hard to take a look at, your body is always there for you. It is not betraying you, it is not abandoning you. And I know that me saying that logically isn't going to resonate. This is what I have come to know through my own practice wisdom of watching the incredible brilliance of our body at work when you leverage the specific language of working on that deeper level. The technical word is implicit memory or cellular memory. That's what we're changing and rewiring.
I have been to some of your events and they really are life changing. They
Aw.
really, you break it down in such a simple way that makes it feel like it's attainable for the first time. Because, thinking about giving that perspective of all the synapses in our body are more than, right? That is a different perspective that I've not heard before.
Mhm.
And it shows us that it's not a simple you're right or you're wrong. You can or you can't. One of my favorite Yoda quotes, because my kids love Star Wars, is do or do not. There is no try.
Yes, I know. I was thinking you were gonna say that quote.
See, we're connected. And I think that Yoda is so wise, but at the same time, there is try and there's try again. There's no finite, you either do or you don't.
Yeah,
There is keep trying. And I think that is really pointing to the work that you do. There is a different way. When you think there's no other way, guess what? There really is.
yeah, yeah, totally, and I love
I
that.
feel like your work, if it's not already being used with military veterans, would
Mm.
be so life changing. I am my full time is I'm a coach and I have this podcast, but I have a side hustle and I'm a server in a shout out to DJ's Wings in Falmouth, Massachusetts.
Ah,
And we just had our Super Bowl buffet on Sunday night. To everybody comes in to watch the Super Bowl. And there is someone who came in and his brother was military and just committed suicide.
mm,
And my heart, I mean, he said it should have been me. Like he I was the screw up, he was the good one. And he's like, but he was in the military. And I said, there it is. They go through so much.
yeah,
They see so much, they experience so much that I think that it's so deeply ingrained somewhere deep inside that they
yeah.
can't even access it with their logical minds. And so they feel like, I'll never get better. I'll never see it differently. I'll never be healed. And that's when it becomes hopeless feeling.
That's totally right. And that's really complicated what you just shared. I have done a lot of work with veterans over my career just because, as a trauma and addictions expert, it was super relevant. So that was in Washington, D.C. And first of all, this is going to go off topic, but there's something called moral injury. So when you engage in something that goes against your morals, it can cause a different kind of trauma and stress response. And the military often asks people and brainwashes them into doing all kinds of things that go against their moral compass. And they have to, and they do it, and they're conditioned to, they actually condition them to take out the human response that would prevent them from carrying out the military tactics. And there is a way to heal from that, but not a lot of that's one moral injury. The second thing is that when our body takes on a stress load, like watching friends die, seeing really violent imagery, all that stuff goes into our implicit memory, right? It goes into that deeper place. And again, they would need the kind of tools that I'm very, very familiar with to rework that in their system and find a way to integrate the experience, right? Because All kinds of horrible things happen to people. I could list off a bunch of world leaders who have gone through literally the atrocities of big T trauma and have come out on the other side. It is possible because our system is so resilient. But without intervention, like I said, you can go down into a dark place and really fall off the cliff of despair, especially because a lot of people don't know about these other tools. And that's the real tragedy, right? So I would love to do that. And I'm actually thinking maybe so I do have the bigger program I mentioned, the Breakthrough Academy is a year-long program, but I have kind of a taster series that's a 5-week program. And maybe I could create some kind of code for the military for people to go through that because, yeah, my heart goes out. My heart really goes
God
out.
bless you for supporting our military. They protect us, right? They
Totally.
protect our sovereignty. And then when they leave and they retire, bye. And there are services available. I'm not saying, but what you do, the work that you do is on such a deeper level. And I love that you have helped and are still committed to, okay, I can still do this work. I love it.
Honestly, the bigger thing too about my speaking is I want to keep spreading the message. Like I always, when I speak, light bulbs go off and people are like, oh, this relates to me, or oh, this relates to my friend or my brother or my cousin or whomever. And maybe they haven't heard of this at all. So I will say one more thing. You know how they tell us only to focus on one banana? I'm going to do the opposite of that right now on your podcast. But I do have a book that's about implicit memory. It's easy to read, it's written for the lay reader. It's called Live Empowered. It happened to be endorsed by Gabor Mate, who's a world renowned physician who's done a ton of work in this area. But it really is a primer to help people start to understand this avenue of hope that when they're in that place, there is a whole world, a sophisticated and ever evolving science around how to move material in this deeper part of our psyche.
You're amazing. You're amazing. So, where can they find your book if
Amazon, easiest place.
beautiful, beautiful.
Amazon. So easy.
So, we just went really deep down and it was my fault but
It's okay. Careful, whatever question you ask me, we're going to go there.
you know what? It's exactly what you said you want to have happen is when you speak, you want a light bulb to go off for people. And that's what happened with me is, oh my gosh, squirrel, this would be amazing for veterans, right? And so you are doing exactly your intention, which is beautiful. So I
Oh,
want
thank
to kind of
you.
pull us back a little bit
Come out of the
and
deep water.
right? I love being in the deep water. Um, let's talk a little bit about change, right? Change can be scary. Change can feel overwhelming. And it has been said that the only thing that we can know, the only thing that is true is that everything will always change.
Totally.
So, how can we develop more resilience? How can we develop more trust in the unknown, in our willingness to change that we will be okay?
That's an interesting question because it's different for each person, right? Person by person, I could fill a room full of 100 people, and how they develop trust would be very different based on the life they'd lived and what they understood to be true about their own safety and what relationships hold for them. So that's actually a pretty sophisticated question, but I would say the general components of trust and then resiliency are safety. So feeling safe, whether it's in the moment, in a lifetime, in a group, in a room. And we create that by building uh, consistency. So they're getting the same result over and over. They're seeing validation and stretching beyond what's comfortable and then feeling some firm footing beyond that. Like, oh, okay, I can do this little at a time. And that's where the very custom tailored work comes in because, like I said, people show up differently. So the way that gets reconditioned may be very different by person. And then you asked about resiliency, which is the attribute of being able to like stretch your capacity for challenges, which definitely will come along. the world that we live in is just full of challenges. And so resiliency is about how do I come out of something hard, ideally like stretched a little more, recovery, stretch, and you build resiliency. And one of the analogies that I like to point to is those James Bond movies or those Jason Bourne movies where this like superhuman gets created. Well, guess what? A lot of the science that I use to help, leaders and high achievers stretch and empower themselves around how they navigate the demands of their high achieving life is the same science that's used for professional athletes and elite performers because you actually can stretch your brain and your nervous system like a muscle so that, let's just say, as a soccer player, not only are you strong and fast and agile, but mentally you can perform the special kick, dodge, whatever move and see in a dynamic, fast-paced, action-oriented moment where your defenders are, where the opening is, time the trajectory. It's a mental capacity to be in a high stress with thousands of spectators watching and stay laser focused on where you're going. That is an elite performance skill that can be moved and trained. And that's why I think there's that high correlation with successful, again, high achievers or entrepreneurs where they've had hardship and life has actually trained them to build that resiliency and tenacity. And now they've reapplied it in a different arena. And, just like a butterfly in a chrysalis, to get out, to actually be strong enough to fly, they have to struggle to get out of that cocoon. And that struggle, like if you just pulled a little larva out, it wouldn't develop. It actually needs the struggle to be strong enough to fly when it gets out of that. Anyway, I just threw in a whole bunch of things, but like I remember, like I think it was Jason Bourne, but I can't remember. People are shooting at him. He's in a car. He's got some girl in the seat next to him. He like goes underwater to dodge them because he's thought out all the different, he's like, whoa, how am I? But he keeps a cool head the whole time. And underwater, he like cuts her seatbelt, pulls her out, breaks the window, gets up, and they swim to safety. And they don't even, and no, everyone thinks he's dead because who's going to get out of that? And I know it's Hollywood, but it is a great example of the mental game of performance in high stakes situations. And that can be trained and learned.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't imagine it. Like the whole thing makes me tired. But I think
I
it's
know. That's why I
really
learned not to dig too deep or like I put people to sleep. Okay.
no,
Back
it
to the
doesn't put me
surface
to
again.
sleep. It makes me feel like there's so much possibility that I can't even fathom. Right. And so it makes me tired in the best way, in that I know that if I'm willing to stretch a little bit, I will become more resilient. It's like going to the gym, right? When you first start out, maybe you can only do 5 minutes on the treadmill, right? But when you're finished, not when you're finished, but a few months later, you're running for
Yeah.
20 minutes.
Totally. And the willingness to go there when the run looks messy or what, I remember doing some kind of like side bridge exercise with a trainer years ago. And I was like, Pat, I literally can't do that. Like I can't, he's like, just try as hard as you can. And I think the first few times I just flopped around, but after the course of being consistent, and maybe it only took like 3 or 4 weeks, I could literally do it like a champ. I could just get up and do that thing that seemed beyond what I could even do. And so maybe that was the origin of your question.
Maybe,
I
but
could have
you know
just
what?
told that little story.
But you just pointed out something that's super important. Not only were you willing to do it and keep trying, even when it was messy, until you were able to do it, you sought help
Yeah,
because you
that's right.
didn't know how to do it. You wanted to
I
get
wouldn't
in
have
better
even
shape.
known to do that, I
Exactly.
wouldn't have even thought that that was a muscle I had.
Exactly. See, and
Clearly
you sought
dormant.
help and you worked with someone and you were consistent. And that's when you
That's
found
right.
your success.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
this month is all about awakening your inner power. And I feel like that's exactly what you do is you shine the light on and awaken the inner power that I would say the majority of people don't even recognize that they have. And so, what would you say? Where would you point people is the best place to learn what more about what you do, to maybe have an experience of working with you?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I would say probably the 5-week Become Your Own Coach transformation program. Because honestly, let's be real, whether it's therapy or coaching, at the end of the day, what you're engaging in is the process of change. So, this 5-week program is an introductory and empowering experience of becoming your own coach, learning how to foster change within yourself. And I love that program. It has 2 live coaching sessions, then digital content kind of coming for the 5 weeks, and an online community to support each other while you're going through it. My next one is next month in April. And in your honor, Pascal, Women Finding Clarity, I have a clarity code for that gives people 50% off. So it's a huge deal. It's a super good deal.
That's amazing. And thank you so much for that. So, the link to check that program out, to sign up for it, is in show notes. And remember to use the code CLARITY. And that way you get your 50% off the whole program. So, thank you for your generosity.
Oh, you're so welcome. And thank you for your generosity because each time you asked me a question, I just went to town and you were so gracious and you're like, oh, I learned so much. It was so great. But I just appreciated your support always.
No, I love your perspectives. I love the way you teach and explain. I love your passion. So, thank you for sharing all of that with us. Thank you for being who you are, for shining a light in the world. And I can't wait to have you back again.
Well, I can't wait to be back. Thank you so much, Pascal.
Thank you for being in our Women Finding Clarity community. If you're enjoying this podcast, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite listening platform and share it with someone you know so they can find clarity from the conversation as well. Remember, the universe is abundant and success is your birthright. Let's align, elevate, and thrive together, one conversation at a time. See you next week.